Hi, everyone. I am Lilith of Tantric Eden on Chatterbait, and we are here today because I won the bcamsmagazine May edition Model of the Month, and I'm being interviewed by Mila, the March Model of the Month winner.
It's so great to meet you. It's such a pleasure. You're just like such a fresh breath of air.
Oh, thank you. It's so nice to meet you too. Long time coming, it feels like.
Yes, definitely. So what excites you the most about being a cam model?
I think the number one thing is probably the freedom from just the life and the career in general. Not just the financial freedom of being your own boss, getting to set your own hours, but also getting to create what you want to create, interact with the people that you want to interact with, not interact with the people you don't want to interact with, and find like-minded community of people who are themselves liberated, and open-minded and finding their best life. So you are connecting and affirming each other, not just other colleagues and other cam models, but fans too.
What do you enjoy most when it comes to interacting with your fans?
That could be the whole interview itself, because the people that I've met through camming and just being online in general have been so incredible. Like the things that I've learned about myself, kinks I've unlocked, and even, core values that I have challenged my perspectives on, the things that I've gotten to share that come back to me in really positive ways, right? Someone had a much more fulfilling conversation with their partner, or they had a whole new outlook on their own sexuality. Being able to share all of aspects of our lives together, everything, right? Even sex is on the table. So we can be raw, we can be vulnerable, we can share art, we can share fears, we can share kinks and pleasure. Getting to connect on all those different levels and getting to connect with people all over the world from all different walks of life is what I enjoy the most.
Yeah. I love that. There's really no bounds on where you can connect with people, and
right?
You just create those bounds yourself, like what you're comfortable with. And
Yeah, I am so grateful for the person that I've become in the last 4 years, getting to meet these people and learn a lot about unconditional love, right? Because if I'm being myself and I'm putting myself out there and I'm getting naked in front of thousands of people or sharing my art in front of thousands of people, like the people that are really going to appreciate me, I've found will support me no matter what type of day I'm having, because I'm being vulnerable. It gives space for them to support that and be vulnerable back. So yeah, it's
almost therapeutic on both ends, and in a sense, in a crazy
sense. It so can be. It's not always, but it really, really can be.
Yes, it can be. It can be for sure.
Yeah.
So what do you want to try in your career that you haven't done yet?
This is where my brain goes to my whole, as I call it, the fuck it list. Like all of the things I haven't done yet in and outside of the bedroom. And one of the big ones for me is I haven't done a lot of collaborations yet with male identifying partners. Okay. And as a pansexual, I'd like to represent the full spectrum of my sexuality. And it just kind of has been circumstantial in the last 4 years that I've been camming, that the experiences I've been having are primarily with female identifying partners or couples and such. So that's something I'm really looking forward to bringing into my content and into my room a bit more. But that's the top of the list of, I would love to try double penetration and a whole lot more of sensory play. And that's the individual side. On the community side, there are so many things I want to do in terms of getting more involved with advocacy and policy, trying to get more involved with the Free Speech Coalition that's doing so much good work to advocate for our industry's rights. I worry about myself and our colleagues, right, with things like baking discrimination or housing discrimination or other legal problems involving families. So to be able to be moving into more involvement politically and also physically the two avenues I'm thinking of right now in my career.
I love that. There's never enough political advocacy when it comes to sex workers, in my opinion.
And we need more mental health resources too.
Absolutely.
Like Pineapple supports one of the few organizations I know that really intentionally connects sex workers and cammers with sex positive therapists. And a lot of us as independent contractors don't have easy access to healthcare. So, and we're dealing with such intense emotional and social dynamics without any real support. So that's part of what I think of when I think of advocacy is it's not just making laws that protect us, but getting us resources that we need, you know?
Yes, that mental and emotional health for sure.
So psychology, we're going to need you, doctor.
Thank you. So how would you describe yourself in 3 words?
I think playful is a word. I won most playful model last year in one of the awards. Thanks. And that felt like a really fitting word for me, my community, my room. Considerate, sometimes to a fault, right? But that's where my heart rests, is in like radical kindness. And the 3rd word was hard for me to think of when I was thinking of these. I'm like equal parts anxious and depressed. No. Tenacious.
Okay, yeah.
Is perhaps the word I would choose, even though it tends to have a kind of negative connotation. Like, it's the word that makes me think of grit, which is something I try to really strive for in my life, you know, because it's like fucking hard at times. It's so incredibly beautiful, but it's also really challenging. And to be able to keep moving forward is what I try to embody in character, you know, that perseverance, because you can't always, you have to rest. You have to move backwards sometimes too. But tenacity in my mind is that feeling of like, I'm gonna get there. It's gonna happen eventually.
I love that.
I might nap right now, but I will get there.
Yes. I view tenacity as such an attractive quality, because you have to be headstrong, and when life puts you back, you've got to be willing to just get back up and keep going and going and going. And that's how, in my mind, people are successful. So I think tenacious and grit are great qualities to have.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having them. What are your short-term and long-term goals?
Short-term, I would really like to build my business and my community to the point where it's financially stable and lucrative enough that I could be supporting a team of full-time employees so that we can be building towards the long-term goals. I also would love to be making more content, because I devote a lot of time to camming and I love being live in the room, but I want to be able to find ways to translate what we're doing in the room and what I want to be sharing with the world and the internet, and put that out there more so that we can be moving towards the long-term goals of reaching a larger community. And I want to also be getting online more if I can, and not just in adult platforms, but more mainstream platforms, so that what we're doing is accessible, all with the idea of normalizing sexuality and identity, and how intermingled those are, and trying to destigmatize the shame surrounding gender, sex, taboo and kink and all of this. So I don't ever want to stray from the adult industry, but I want to be able to do my part trying to appropriately find footing in the mainstream kind of internet culture. Long-term goal is a sentiment that I've found is shared amongst many cam models I talk to. I would love to buy a ton of land, build properties on that land that can house a neighborhood of like-minded people, other people in the industry, other sex positive people, you know, have that neighborhood that you want to live in, build your own neighborhood. And on top of that, have properties that can have a studio for people to come film, stream, work together, have technology and resources available to them, have a mental health resource facility that's got even just information or workshops or spaces for counselors and therapists to have offices, to have venue spaces for art and music and community experiences and performances. Full functioning homestead. Sustainability is an important piece of this whole dream to me. I would love to have the gardens and animals and, you know, apocalypse ready just in case.
Yeah.
But to have lots of different spaces, maybe even a space for a legal team or lawyer offices, all the different components that make life, you know, possible, and not just life in the industry, but to make an actual network, a community. Maybe we'll even unincorporate from the United States and be our own country. But that goal of having home, you know, and having our own little utopia where all of us on the outskirts, on the margins of society, working in really important industries and fields, have a space to come together. And not just that, but our families do too, because while we lack a lot of support, I mean, so do our children and our siblings, our parents, etc. So I think mainly of the children of people in the industry and having more resources for them too, because I think that, you know, the sex worker parents that I know are some of the best parents that I've ever met. And I used to be an educator, and yet we face stigma. Our families face stigma. So to have resources, not just for us in the industry, but for our children too, children of people in the industry, would be wonderful. And a community where they all can have, you know, peers with similar experiences in life and in their families. And yeah, that's the long-term dream, the physical manifestation of everything that we do online, because it's so much more than sex and orgasm and masturbation and bodies. It is art, it is intimacy, it is connectivity, it is psyche and identity, right? There's so many different ways that we can take that further. And
I love that. You know? And it can be so difficult with the community. It's awesome to have like the online avenue with Twitter and different spaces to be able to talk to other people that are in the industry. But the idea of you wanting to manifest it and have a certain place where there's physical.
We can all go.
Yes, I love that. I want to sign up.
Right? Yeah, like have retreats, have camps, have just an open space for people to come whenever they needed, because we are isolated a lot of the time. Like, it's great to connect digitally with each other. I love it. I have met so many incredible people that I would have never met otherwise. And I can't imagine my life without them, but like, we're all across the world or the country, you know?
Exactly, which makes it definitely difficult for sure. So what features do you think are missing on your preferred campsite?
I think the two main features, the one that I'd really like to see is some sort of kind of raid feature that would allow models, when they're done streaming or while they're streaming, to take their room and the viewership in their room to another model's room, and let that model accept or decline whether they want to receive that audience. I love doing that when I'm done, you know, at the end of the stream. I will always have my mods check and see who else is online that we could, you know, of our cam fam friends that have a kind of standing consent to, yeah, you can drop people in my room if you're heading out for the night or whatever. And we'll do that. And we still like to check, because you never know what someone's doing or what type of night they're having. But I would love to have it really easy for us to support each other's rooms and communities that way. Just click of a button, like, all right, here, I can send you all to so-and-so's room and you can continue on with the festivities. So that I'd love to see. And I'd also love to see, because we don't have this on Chatterbait, although I do know that they're working on some of these features. So I'm excited about it. A beefed up model profile page so that I can sell more merchandise, I can sell more content, I can have more messaging features, I can have more fan club tiers and features, just so that there's more of a central hub where I'm interacting with the audience and viewership that I am getting through that, that platform. It would be nice to do that, although we always have to keep our eggs in different baskets, right? Because platforms change their policies all the time.
Yeah.
The campsites, I trust a lot more to really protect our communities, our businesses, our privacy. So I would love to be able to do more with my model profile there.
Nice. I've never even heard of I've heard of the idea of raids on other sites that are safe for work.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of having that.
It could be a little trickier when you're on an adult platform, which is why we definitely can't just dump people. But
yeah, but if consent,
I want to bring it over. Yeah.
Yeah, because sharing is caring, and I think that's great. I love that idea a lot. What would you say are some of the biggest challenges in the camming industry?
So we've talked about, policy like banking discrimination, housing discrimination, immigration discrimination, all of these things. These are laws that affect us. And there's also the kind of general culture of people, there's the war on porn. There are these organizations that are typically extreme religious organizations that are really about censorship. Oof, my German English brain can never do that word, censorship. And, they're usually anti-LGBTQ. So there's a lot that's happening, not just in the political and legal battles that we're fighting in the US, and this is happening in other countries too. It's not just the sex and adult industry. It is a lot that we are trying to take on. And I talked more about that in my print interview too, but what I really want to address here, I think, is the root of that, which is the social stigma, right? How can we really change these laws if we aren't changing people's minds? And we're on the tail end of at least a century of very puritanical views on sex. Sex is one of the biggest taboos in our American culture. And I think we're just now starting to understand that maybe sex isn't the biggest taboo, but intimacy is the biggest taboo. And I think that's actually why the camming industry, as technology and the internet started to evolve, was born, because people weren't just seeking out, performances, but they wanted that one-on-one interaction. Mm-hmm. So the social stigma that we face is, as cam models, I feel particularly intense, because we have a whole audience of people, clientele, that are coming to us wanting that intimacy, wanting that live interaction, wanting that emotional labor. And yet we exist in a world and in a culture where we're dehumanized and stigmatized, and we're not seen as real humans. So that, coupled with how many people lose their families, lose their homes, lose their other jobs and security because of the social stigma, I think that's really the biggest problem. And what does that stigma come from? Why are people believing things that are harming our industry when we as an industry are saying, hey, this is our truth, believe us? Fear, right? That projection of misunderstanding and how we often are afraid of the things that we don't understand, and the shame that we as a society grew up with, believing that we shouldn't engage with our sex, that was shameful, that we shouldn't be engaging with our sexual identity and our sexuality, or that we shouldn't ever deviate from any sort of gender norm. All of these things that we as individuals move through the world having to grapple with internally, I feel like when presented with the cam industry, where we are people who are out there at our most vulnerable, connecting with people who are seeking that, and in and of that self is so vulnerable, it's so easy to want to point the finger and say, no, we can't have that, because it scares them, because it taps into their own sense of shame. And how do you overcome shame? Love. Radical kindness and self-love, unconditional love from others. And how do we as an industry under attack love the attackers? The people that are so afraid and so ashamed that our shamelessness scares them, right? It's hard. Because that's not, at the end of the day, it shouldn't be our fight. We shouldn't have to convince other people that we deserve to survive, that we deserve respect. So I think that goes back to, we can fuel energy into policy and the resources we already have, like the Free Speech Coalition and the Pineapple Support Group, so that we can give ourselves the energy and the resources to keep fighting this fight. Like, what else can we do? Other than have interviews like this even, and talk about these conversations, you know?
Yes.
Because there's nothing wrong with sex. And there's certainly
there's not
intimacy.
So what would you say to someone that's trying out camming for the very first time?
So much of what we've talked about glamorizes it to a certain degree while addressing the kind of obvious challenges. And while there are tons of glamorous parts of the industry, I think the biggest piece of advice would be, make sure that you're not just looking at how to be a good content creator or a good cam model, but you're also looking at the risk, and you're really assessing that for yourself. And you're also looking at how to make yourself extra safe online. Those are incredibly important things. And once you've made that leap, as we did, you know, once you make the leap of faith, then find the things that are really you love doing, and find the parts of yourself that you really love sharing, and start from there. Because the more authentic you can be, the more authentically your community is going to support you, and unconditionally your community is going to support you. And there will always be people that you cannot please. There will always be people that will try and tell you how to run your life, your business, your relationships. There will be people that try to tell you you're a terrible person for the way that you're living your life. You have to be able to let that be water off a duck's back.
Absolutely.
You know, it will affect you, but building up your community of authentic support is what really buffers that. And you will find it. Like, I believe in you. Just gotta believe in you.
I agree. Yes, that's a great piece of advice for someone starting, for sure. Do you have any feedback or suggestions for BCam Magazine or the industry in general?
Not specifically for BCams. You know, I do appreciate that we have like a cam focused media kind of network, because especially as we've had all these shifts in the industry this last year with talent and producers and executives being called out for harassment and assault. And, you know, I appreciate that we already are a pretty small niche in the industry. We need more spaces for our niche and our community. And I think the kind of, to touch on that general calling out, I'm so glad, so fucking grateful it is happening. They're gonna have to beep out so much of this interview. I'm sitting here in my cute little pink shirt, cussing like a sailor. But as an industry that is self-regulated, it's up to us to really hold ourselves and each other accountable and set the standard. And it's amazing to see the precedent that's being set now of such a high standard that no type of predatory behavior is going to be tolerated from the people who hold positions of power, even the people who are trying to hold positions of power. So I sincerely want that momentum to continue to be fueled, because we've gone after what I would consider easy targets, and it's time to really hold that same fire to the people that have been in the industry for a long time and hold a lot of power and have abused a lot of their power in ways that are completely reprehensible. So
yeah,
that's my advice, is keep going, keep doing it, keep sharing your stories. We believe you. Like, keep standing together, keep being kind to each other.
Yeah. And I've noticed too, like just this year, to kind of like touch on what you've said about people being exposed in the industry and levels of power, the amount of people that have stood up for the victims and stuff has been so encouraging to me.
So encouraging. We have a voice when we are far stronger as a community. And it's funny because, you know, woman to woman, but also just person to person, you're exploited in any industry. There are predators in any industry. This notion that because we're sex workers or we're in the sex industry that we're easier to exploit or we're easier prey has always been funny to me.
Yes.
It's so obvious when someone comes into the industry and tries to take advantage of the fact, or tries to take success away from the models, tries to get clout in order to just get close to us. Like, the smartest people I've ever met are in this industry, the most emotionally intelligent. So I've never experienced more predatory behavior than I have in other fields, but it doesn't make it any less okay. It's all
correct.
All completely intolerable. And I think we as a community and an industry have the vocabulary, the, you know, rallying power and network, and also the tenacity to be able to really set the standards that we want. So we're just tired. Tip us, friends, you know, tip your local cam models.
I love it. It's been such a pleasure meeting you and getting to know you. And congrats again for Models of Month for May.
Same to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I hope you have an amazing rest of your summer.
Thank you, you too. And thank you, bcams, for all of this.
Yes, thank you so much, bcams. It's been an absolute pleasure.